You can't read the label if you're stuck inside the bottle. Hey, everybody, frank+kern here. I've got this group of clients. I call them the private client group. We meet 3 times a year. My sole job with these clients is to help them increase revenue, but do it in the simplest and fastest and most efficient way possible. And interestingly enough, most of the time, that ends up with me getting them to do less stuff. As crazy as it sounds, I'll give you a story. So I've got this one client, his name is Fabian. He's awesome. He's from Europe, and in our first meeting, we always do this exercise with clients, and we find out what their best payday is. And the concept of best payday is this thing that you identify the very best selling activity that you have that is the most lucrative in terms of net profit to you and the most rewarding and the most sustainable. And the idea behind it is, hey, if we focus on that one thing, then we can really achieve some pretty good simplified growth. So that was all great. And then he leaves the meeting, everything's cool, and I give him some instructions, and then he comes to a second meeting, and this is maybe 4 months later. So I just saw him, right? So it'd been about 4 months, and this is very, very classic. So I love this guy, and I love this story. And at the beginning of every meeting, when I'm meeting with clients, I always start with the very first question is, hey, what's your objective, right? Why have you come? What are we looking to accomplish from this meeting? And I go around the table, and there's not a lot of people in the meeting or anything, and I get the objectives from every person. I'm writing them down in this very notebook, as a matter of fact. And the guy says, well, I need to find a new business model. I'm like, that's weird, because, we identified this stuff is working pretty good. So I say, okay, and I write it down, and finally it gets time to where I say, what's going on? Tell me what happened. So here's what happened, okay? So his instructions from the first meeting was that, all right, everything you're doing is good. Let's expand the marketplace a little bit. So he went, and his best process for getting customers is to hold a live event. So he decided to hold 4 live events, and he did it all from advertising, which was great because he's not really a big advertiser, and that was new to him. And he did 2 of them in the areas where he usually does them, and then he did 2 of them in other countries. And so I said, okay, tell me what happened. He said, all right, here's what I did and everything. He said, nobody bought. And I was like, okay, well, let's look at the numbers, right? And here's the deal. Here's an equation for you. Kern plus calculator equals clarity. All right. So I said, tell me the numbers. He goes, well, some people came and nobody really bought enough to make it worth my while. I said, tell me the numbers for every single meeting. All right. So here's how it broke down. The 2 that were held in another country, they didn't work out very well. Some people came, everything he said was 100% accurate. Maybe 20 people, 30 people came to each meeting. Some people bought stuff, but it wasn't really enough to make it worth his while. And he said, that really wasn't good. We did a little digging and we found out the reason nobody bought is because in order for them to get the thing they were buying, they were going to have to go to another country to get it. So it's like, okay, that makes sense. Tell me about the meetings that happened in the country that you normally do. He goes, well, I had like a couple people showed up, 20 or 30 per meeting, and I got some sales. I said, well, if you wouldn't mind, humor me and do a little digging and find out how many sales exactly. Long story short, he did $70,000 in sales from 2 meetings, all right? Now, the meetings were each 1 day. In fact, they were about a half a day, which is fantastic. But here's the best part. He spent a total of $500 on ads per meeting. $500 on ads per meeting. So it's $1,000 total in ad spend turned into $70,000 in sales. So I'm doing the numbers. I'm like, dude, this is phenomenal. Okay, so the numbers here show that when you go out of the country, you might have to adjust the offer a little bit. When you stay in the country, you turn $1,000 into $70,000. Is there any reason not to keep doing this? And once I pointed that out to him, he was like, oh my gosh, man, I can't. Of course, there's no reason to not to keep doing this. It makes sense now. He was focused on the ones that didn't work and wasn't focusing on the ones that did. And it's so common. It's metaphorically, it's like trying to read the label of a medicine bottle if you're inside the bottle. You can't read the label if you're inside the bottle. And a lot of times when you feel overwhelmed in your business and you feel stuck and you feel like you have to reinvent everything, it's because you're so stuck in it that you really can't get that 30,000 foot view to see what it is you really need to do. So if you find yourself in that position, here's what I want you to do. Go back over the last 12 months and identify the exact things that produced the most revenue in the most sustainable and fulfilling way for you. And really look at the numbers for those things and ask yourself the question of, what would happen if I just focused all of my efforts and energy on those things? I'm happy to report for my client it equaled a very important windfall. Once we got everything back and on track and into focus, he's no longer going down this rabbit hole of having to create an entirely new business model, and he can hopefully keep spending $1,000 to make 70. How crazy is that? Naturally, my advice was Next time, why don't we see what happens if we spend $5,000 on ads? Maybe we can make the same return, you know? Nonetheless, my name is Frank Kern. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any interest in being a part of my private client group, just type the word private client in the comments below, and my little chat bot thingy will send you some information. Either way, thanks for watching this video. Hope you found it helpful, and I look forward to seeing you soon.